Now we have a bit of fun with the smasher, we have a bit of fun with the beast, and it just shows what a physical game rugby is. And we have a bit of a laugh, but there is a very, very serious side to it. It's been amplified over the last few years, that, of course, of concussion. I'm delighted that we're joined by Brian O'Leary, Head of Medical Services at London Irish, and Corinne Palmer, Head of Operations at Premiership Rugby, and they're expert on concussion. Brian, we're going to start with you, if we can. We hear about concussion protocols, head injury assessments. Just give us an idea, as quickly as you can. I know it's difficult because it's such a big subject. When we hear of a head injury assessment, what are we talking about?
Okay, so the key message with concussion is recognise and remove. So if you recognise it and it's black and white, player's concussed, then he's off the pitch and he doesn't come back on. So that's pretty straightforward. That's the easy bit. It's when we don't recognise it or we're unsure, then the World Rugby have given us the head injury assessment tool. So the player comes off, goes into the medical room for, he's got up to 10 minutes, where the doctor goes through a series of balance, some short-term memory questions, some subjective questions, and if he's happy that he's passed all those, then the player then returns to the pitch. If he's not happy, then he's removed from play.
And Corinne, how does this play into what Premiership Rugby want, what World Rugby want? Are we seeing an increase in sort of the understanding of concussions now?
Definitely, and from our point of view, it's been the #1 priority from a player welfare perspective, and we want to change culture. We want to change culture, and we've done this through a programme of education and awareness, which we've made compulsory across the league and the professional game. So everyone, whether they're a player, whether they're a coach, or indeed whether they're an administrator, has gone through the awareness process, which has ultimately led to a number of questions being answered 100% right, and we've got 100% completion across the league.
Where does it actually? Where do you believe, guys, that it's going to start though? We've got to have the ambassadors of the concussion at the top end of the game. But what about the schools? What about the junior rugby clubs, the new players that are coming into the game? How are we going to change their culture?
Well, again, it comes to raising awareness. Now, we can only talk really for the professional game because that's which Premiership Rugby look after the professional game on behalf of the clubs. But we, as collaboratively with the RFU, as a governing body, who are doing a hell of a lot of work throughout the game, down into the community element of it, will work with us for the upper end of the game.
Brian, what about some of the urban myths that maybe surround head injury assessments and the protocols? Because we hear of players being, and you can tell us whether this is right or not, start of a season they get tested, they get a base level, and some of them we hear might give deliberately misleading answers to allow them, that if they are suffering from concussion, to appear okay.
I think that is a bit more of an urban legend, really. You know, the educational modules that are out there now, players know so much more now than what they did, you know, 2, 3, 5 years ago. So players are continually being educated. We sit down when a player is concussed, we say, look, this is a serious event, you know, you've got to take this seriously. And we speak, it doesn't matter about the next game or whether it's a cup final or whatever. We talk about long-term health, and it's about that continual education of a player.
I think that is vitally important. The education is the key, not just for players, but for officials, referees, TMOs. I think that's important as well, because they have probably replays at their disposal that they can look at. But absolutely, I think there has been a change in mindset of players over the last few years. And I think, you know, certain high-profile cases of players getting concussive episodes, I think it has made a difference. You know, in the international, in the Six Nations, there's been a couple of guys that might well have played 5 years ago because they might have kept some of the symptoms that they had during the week quiet because they wanted to play. And now they're thinking, well, actually, it might be making a big difference to my future. And the other thing as well is the doctors can only look at what the medical research says. They don't have the magic answer. I was speaking to one of the international doctors about it, and he said 20 years ago we treated an ACL very, very differently to how we treat it now. So they can only go on the information that they're given, and it doesn't mean they're bad doctors, they're just, the information is out there. So a massive amount is this data capture and making sure that we're constantly looking at ways of improving, because I don't think that concussions got considerably worse over. I think that the level of collisions has made a difference, but people have always been getting concussed, they just haven't been reporting it, and that is the key.
Is that an issue, the reporting, the ways into this data that Ben's talking about? Do we get all the right data?
I think so, yes. I think we're being hyper vigilant now. So, you know, and I think all the data is there, and we're using it for more and more research. And I think, like I said, that's a great point. You know, 5 years' time we'll be treating this differently because we'll be a lot more smarter in 5 years' time than we're a lot more smarter than we were 5 years previous.
Because I read on the audit report that there were only 8 cases of concussions in training throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
Now, we all know that throughout the season, with all the clubs that are going on, there must have been more than 8 cases of that. So surely we've got to put some pressure on those clubs and the right people to make sure that those reports...
I'd argue then that training sessions, the level of contact has dropped considerably, the load has dropped considerably, and so we probably at London Irish should probably maybe do, you know, maybe 10 minutes of contact in the whole week, so you're not exposing players to that level of collision.
And I think the next stage is for the issue of concussion to be addressed the same way and the protocol to be addressed the same way across the whole of the world. Because at the moment, you know, the governing body, you know, lay down some, you know, some guidelines, but maybe the way that they treat it in New Zealand might be very different to the way we treat it in the UK. And for the professional end of the game, I think a huge amount has been done to make great strides. I mean, my son picked up a head injury on the weekend, and you know, I'm sure there's mothers around the country, you know, not necessarily enjoying the fact that their sons, are, you know, or daughters might be picking up head injuries week in, week out.
The kid who hit your son is now terrified knowing whose son he hit. Actually, just quickly from the player's point of view, what's the message that you're hearing? You know, you're at the sharp end.
Yeah, I think it's just making us aware as players to this concussion. I mean, we did the module on the RPA, and I mean, as rugby players, you're quite stubborn. You want to play, and you just want to get on with it, and you don't want to actually acknowledge that, listen, yeah, there's something wrong with it. But getting educated and looking through the model, you look at stuff and you realise that, listen, yeah, there's actually quite a big risk that later on in your career might get difficulties in it. So just raising the awareness from a player's point of view.
Well, guys, we congratulate you on what you're doing. We know you've got a hell of a lot more to do. Corin, Brian, thank you very much indeed. We'll keep an eye on this. It is for the welfare of everyone, not just the internationals, for absolutely everyone.